Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Kepler colony and watched the sunset paint the alien sky in shades of purple and gold. After 3 years on this distant world, he still found the sight beautiful. Below him, the colony's main square buzzed with activity as families prepared for the harvest festival. Another peaceful day in paradise, he said to himself, though he knew peace was never guaranteed this far from Earth. The colony on Kepler 442b was humanity's furthest settlement from home. 12,000 people had made this world their new home, building farms and factories under the strange purple sun. Children ran through the streets speaking words in both English and the new colonial slang they had invented. It was humanity at its best, Morrison thought. People working together to build something new. Dr. Lisa Grant joined him on the deck, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You look worried, Jake," she said, handing him a cup. Morrison took the coffee and smiled. Lisa had been the colony's chief medical officer since the beginning. She was also one of the few people who could read his moods. "Just thinking about how far we've come," he said. 3 years ago, this was an empty rock. Now look at it." The colony spread out below them like a small city. Green fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with the white buildings of the agricultural sector. The industrial zone hummed with the sound of machines processing the rare minerals they mined from the planet's crust. It was a good life, Morrison knew. Better than many places on overcrowded Earth. "Amy picked up something interesting today," Lisa said, referring to their communications officer. "Some kind of signal from deep space. Not from Earth, not from any of our other colonies." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. Alien? Maybe. She's trying to decode it now. Could be nothing, could be everything. Engineer Tony Blake's voice crackled over Morrison's radio. "Captain, you need to get to the communications center. Amy found something big." Morrison and Lisa hurried through the colony's corridors. The festival preparations continued around them. Families hung decorations and children practiced songs they would sing at tonight's celebration. No one seemed worried about signals from space. They trusted Morrison and his team to handle such things. The communications center was a small room filled with screens and blinking lights. Amy Rodriguez sat at the main console, her face pale. She had been monitoring space communications for the colony since day 1. Nothing in her training had prepared her for this. "Show me what you found," Morrison said. Amy pointed to her screen. "The signal is artificial, Captain. No doubt about it. And it's not random. There's a pattern, like language. Can you translate it?" "I'm trying, but it's unlike anything we've ever seen. The structure is completely alien." Amy paused and looked at Morrison. "Captain, there's something else. The signal is getting stronger. Whatever sent it is coming this way." Morrison felt his blood turn cold. "How long until it gets here?" "If it's traveling at light speed, maybe 6 hours. If it's faster than light," Amy shrugged. "Could be any time." Tony Blake burst into the room. "Captain, we've got multiple contacts on long-range sensors, big ones, and they're not broadcasting any identification codes." Morrison's mind raced. First contact with an alien species was supposed to be humanity's greatest moment. Diplomats and scientists had planned for decades how such a meeting should happen. There were protocols, procedures, careful steps to ensure peaceful communication. But this felt different. The approaching ships had not answered any of their attempts at communication. They had not slowed down or shown any sign of peaceful intent. They were simply coming, fast and direct. "Put the colony on alert," Morrison ordered. "Get the defense systems online." "Jake," Lisa said quietly. "Maybe they're just curious. Maybe they want to talk." Morrison hoped she was right, but 20 years in the Colonial Defense Force had taught him to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. The next few hours passed like a nightmare. The alien ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. There were 12 of them, each one massive and clearly built for war. They ignored all attempts at communication from the colony. Amy kept trying to reach them. "Unknown vessels, this is Kepler Colony. We are peaceful explorers from Earth. Please respond." Nothing but silence. The ships moved toward the planet with deadly purpose. Morrison ordered all civilians to emergency shelters. The colony's defense systems, built to handle pirates or rogue asteroids, suddenly seemed pathetically small. "They're not here to talk," Morrison said grimly. The attack began without warning. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, striking the colony's main power station. The lights went out across half the settlement. Explosions lit up the purple sky as the alien ships systematically destroyed everything humans had built. Morrison grabbed his radio. "All defense teams, return fire. Protect the evacuation routes," but their weapons barely scratched the alien ships. The enemy technology was centuries ahead of anything humanity possessed. The colonists were like insects fighting giants. "Morrison, to all units," he shouted over the sound of explosions. "Forget the buildings. Save the people. Get everyone to the underground shelters." Lisa was already organizing medical teams to treat the wounded. Tony worked desperately to keep the emergency power systems running. Amy stayed at her post, trying to get a distress signal through to Earth. The bombardment continued for hours. When it finally stopped, most of the colony lay in ruins. Of the 12,000 people who had called Kepler home, only 3,000 remained alive in the underground shelters. Morrison emerged from the main bunker to survey the damage. The beautiful settlement was gone, replaced by smoking craters and twisted metal. The purple sky was dark with smoke and ash. The alien ships had departed as suddenly as they had arrived. They had accomplished their mission with cold efficiency. They had wiped out most of the human colony and left the survivors to die slowly from radiation and system failures. Amy's final transmission had reached Earth just before the communication array was destroyed. "This is Kepler colony under attack by unknown alien force. They're wiping us out. Tell Earth we tried." As Morrison stood in the ruins of humanity's furthest outpost, he made a silent promise to the 9,000 people who had died. Their deaths would not be forgotten. Somehow, someway, there would be an accounting for this day. He did not know that his promise would reshape the galaxy forever. The message from Kepler colony reached Earth 17 hours after the attack. Admiral Rick Carter was eating breakfast with his wife when his emergency communicator began screaming. 20 minutes later, he stood in the war room beneath the Pentagon, watching the final transmission from Amy Rodriguez play on the main screen. "This is Kepler colony under attack by unknown alien force. They're wiping us out. Tell Earth we tried." The room fell silent when the message ended. Around the table sat the most powerful military leaders on Earth. None of them had ever imagined they would face this situation. "How many survivors?" Carter asked. General Susan Hayes checked her datapad. "Long-range sensors show minimal life signs. Maybe 3,000 people in the underground shelters, that's all." Carter felt rage building in his chest. 9,000 innocent people, murdered by aliens who had never even tried to communicate. Families, children, farmers, who had only wanted to build a new life under an alien sun. "Do we know who did this?" he asked. Dr. Frank Miller, the government's top expert on alien technology, stood up. "We've analyzed the attack patterns and weapon signatures. The attackers used energy weapons far beyond our current technology. Their ships were at least 3 times larger than our biggest warships." "That's not what I asked," Carter said coldly. "I asked who did this." Miller shifted uncomfortably. "We don't know yet, Admiral, but we're working on it." President Maria Santos entered the room, flanked by her security detail. Her face was pale and her eyes were red from crying. She had just finished speaking with the families of the Kepler colonists. "Gentlemen," she said, taking her seat at the head of the table, "I've just spent 3 hours on the phone with parents whose children are dead, husbands whose wives are gone, children whose parents will never come home. They all asked me the same question. What are we going to do about it?" Carter leaned forward. "Madam President, we need to mobilize everything we have. This was not just an attack on a colony, this was an attack on humanity itself." "I agree," Santos said, "but we're facing an enemy with superior technology. Our best warships are no match for what destroyed Kepler." "Then we build better ships," Carter replied. "We learn from this attack. We adapt. We become stronger." General Hayes pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's military assets. "We have 147 warships spread across 12 star systems, 300,000 ground troops. Our manufacturing capacity can produce a new destroyer every 6 months." "Not good enough," Carter said. "We need more ships, better weapons, and we need them fast." Dr. Miller cleared his throat. Admiral, there might be a way. The wreckage from Kepler contains alien technology. If we can reverse engineer their weapons and shields... How long? Santos asked. 6 months for basic analysis. Maybe 2 years for working prototypes. Carter slammed his fist on the table. 2 years? The survivors on Kepler will be dead in 2 weeks if we don't get relief ships there immediately. The nearest ships are already en route, Hayes said. They'll reach Kepler in 10 days. Santos stood up. I'm declaring a state of emergency. All military production facilities are now under federal control. Every shipyard in human space will work around the clock building warships. Every scientist will work on understanding alien technology. Carter nodded. What about the other colonies? If these aliens attacked Kepler, they might attack other settlements. All colonies are on high alert, Hayes replied. We're repositioning our fleets to protect the most vulnerable settlements. Santos walked to the window overlooking the Pentagon courtyard. Below, soldiers rushed between buildings, preparing for a war no one had expected. I'm going to address the nation tonight, she said. People deserve to know what happened. They deserve to know that we will respond. That evening, President Santos stood before the cameras in the Oval Office. Her speech was broadcast to every human settlement in the galaxy. My fellow humans, today we learned that we are not alone in the universe. We also learned that some of our neighbors are not friendly. 9,000 innocent people were murdered on Kepler Colony by an alien force that attacked without warning or provocation. Santos paused, letting her words sink in. To the families of those lost, I promise you that their deaths will not be forgotten. To the survivors on Kepler, help is coming. To every human in the galaxy, I say this. We will not be intimidated. We will not hide. We will defend ourselves, and we will seek justice for those who have been wronged. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Defense contractors worked overtime to increase production. Scientists abandoned their personal research to focus on military applications. But the most important response came from an unexpected source. On Kepler Colony, Captain Morrison and his surviving engineers had spent days working in the radioactive ruins of their communications array. Using salvaged alien technology and human ingenuity, they managed to build a new transmitter. Morrison's message reached Earth 3 days after the president's speech. This is Captain Morrison, Kepler Colony. We are alive, but barely. The aliens who attacked us left behind wreckage. We've been studying it. These creatures, they're not gods. Their technology is advanced, but it can be understood. It can be copied. It can be improved upon. Morrison's voice was hoarse but determined. They think we're dead. They think they've won. They're wrong. We humans have something they don't understand. We don't give up. We don't forget. And we sure as hell don't forgive those who murder our families. The message continued. I'm sending you everything we've learned about their technology. Use it. Build better ships, train better soldiers, and when you're ready, come back for us. We'll be waiting. Admiral Carter listened to Morrison's message in his private office. The captain had lost most of his people, his colony was in ruins, but he was still fighting. That was humanity at its core, Carter thought. They might be knocked down, but they always got back up. Carter called his aide. Get me a meeting with every ship designer in the fleet, and contact the research teams working on the alien wreckage. I want prototypes in 6 months, not 2 years. Across human space, the same determination was taking hold. On Mars, the orbital shipyards expanded their production lines. On Europa, scientists worked day and night to understand alien weapon systems. On Earth, military academies developed new tactics for fighting technologically superior enemies. The aliens who had attacked Kepler thought they had eliminated a minor threat. They had no idea they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could imagine. In the depths of space, automated sensors recorded unusual activity in human star systems. Ships were moving, factories were building. A species that should have been cowering in fear was instead preparing for war. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had spread to so many worlds in such a short time. It was not because they were the strongest or the smartest species. It was because they never knew when to quit, and they were about to prove that to anyone foolish enough to threaten them. Colonel Danny Pierce stood in the briefing room of the stealth ship Shadowrunner, looking at the holographic display of his target. 6 months had passed since the Kepler massacre, and humanity was ready to send a message. "This is Mining Station Zeta-7," Pierce told his team. "Intelligence says it belongs to the species that attacked our people, the Zephyrians." Lieutenant Kate Thompson studied the display. She was the best reconnaissance specialist in the human fleet, hand-picked for this mission. "Looks heavily defended, sir. Shield generators, weapon platforms, at least 200 personnel." Sergeant Mike Johnson grinned. He was an explosives expert who had volunteered for this mission the moment he heard about Kepler. "Good. More targets for us to practice on." Commander Alex Wright spoke from the ship's bridge through the intercom. "Colonel, we're 12 hours out from the target system. No sign that they've detected us yet." Pierce nodded. The Shadow Runner was humanity's first ship built with reverse-engineered alien technology. It was invisible to most sensors and faster than anything the Zephyrians had. More importantly, it carried weapons that could punch through enemy shields. "Remember the mission parameters," Pierce said to his team. "This is not about conquest. This is not about territory. This is about sending a message. When we're done here, we want every Zephyrian in the galaxy to know what happens when you attack innocent humans." Thompson raised her hand. "Sir, what about survivors? Do we take prisoners?" Pierce's face hardened. "Did they take prisoners at Kepler? Did they spare the children hiding in the schools? Did they show mercy to the doctors treating the wounded?" He paused. "No prisoners. No mercy. They set the rules when they attacked our colony." The team spent the next several hours preparing their equipment. Each soldier carried weapons based on captured Zephyrian technology but improved with human engineering. Their armor was lighter but stronger than anything the enemy used. Most importantly, they were motivated by something the Zephyrians could never understand: righteous anger. Commander Wright's voice came over the intercom again. "We're approaching the target system, dropping out of hyperspace in 30 seconds. The Shadow Runner emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Rigel system. The mining station hung in space near a small asteroid field, its lights twinkling against the stars. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful. Pierce felt no sympathy. The beings on that station belonged to the same species that had murdered 9,000 innocent humans. They had chosen their side when they remained silent about the massacre. "Thompson, what do you see?" Pierce asked. The lieutenant studied her sensors. "Minimal security, sir. They're not expecting trouble. Only one patrol ship in the area, and it's on the far side of the system. Johnson, are you ready?" The demolitions expert checked his equipment one final time. "Born ready, sir. I can take out their shield generators in under 10 minutes. "Right. Position us for the attack run." The Shadow Runner moved silently through space, its stealth systems hiding it from enemy sensors. The Zephyrians on the mining station continued their work, unaware that death was approaching. The attack began at 0300 station time, when most of the facility's crew would be sleeping. Johnson's team infiltrated the station through a maintenance airlock while Pierce and Thompson attacked the shield generators from outside. The first explosions lit up the darkness of space. The station's shields flickered and died as Johnson's charges destroyed the power conduits. Emergency alarms began screaming throughout the facility. Pierce's voice crackled over the radio. "All teams, execute! No survivors!" What followed was not a battle. It was an extermination. The human soldiers moved through the station with deadly efficiency, using their superior equipment and training to eliminate every Zephyrian they encountered. The aliens tried to fight back, but they were not prepared for human tactics. They expected enemies to announce themselves, to demand surrender, to follow the civilized rules of warfare that had governed their empire for thousands of years. Instead, they faced an enemy that struck from the shadows, that showed no mercy, that treated war as a tool of justice rather than politics. Within 3 hours, mining station Zeta-7 was a floating tomb. Every Zephyrian on board was dead. The station's computers had been hacked, its databases copied, its communication arrays destroyed. But Pierce was not finished. He activated the station's emergency beacon and recorded a message in the Zephyrian language, using translations provided by Earth's intelligence services. "This is Colonel Pierce of the Human Defense Forces. You killed 9,000 innocent people at Kepler Colony. Today, we begin collecting payment for that debt. Every Zephyrian military installation will be destroyed. Every Zephyrian soldier will die. Every world that supports your empire will burn. You started this war when you murdered our families. We will finish it when you are all dead." The message was broadcast on all frequencies before Pierce's team rigged the station to explode. They were back aboard the Shadowrunner when mining. Station Zeta-7 became an expanding ball of fire and debris. Commander Wright set course for their next target. Intelligence had identified 17 Zephyrian military installations within striking distance. All of them would be visited in the coming weeks. The pattern repeated itself across Zephyrian space. Human strike teams appeared without warning, destroyed their targets completely, and vanished back into the darkness. Each attack was more sophisticated than the last, as the humans learned from experience and improved their tactics. The Zephyrians began to panic. These humans were supposed to be a primitive species, barely capable of interstellar travel, yet they moved through space like ghosts, struck like lightning, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Commander Vextar, the Zephyrian, officer who had led the attack on Kepler, found himself summoned before the High Command. His superiors demanded answers he did not have. "How are these humans moving undetected through our space?" Admiral Kektol demanded. "Our sensors should be able to track any ship they possess." Vextar shifted uncomfortably. "They appear to have improved their technology significantly, Admiral. Our intelligence reports were clearly wrong about their capabilities." 17 installations destroyed in 6 weeks, General Morgeth said. "Over 3,000 of our personnel killed, and we have not managed to destroy even one of their ships." "Their tactics are unlike anything we have encountered," Vextar replied. "They do not follow conventional warfare protocols. They strike without warning, show no mercy, and retreat before we can respond." Admiral Kektol leaned forward. "What do you recommend, Commander?" Vextar had been thinking about this question for weeks. "We need to increase security at all installations, deploy more patrol ships, set up communication networks to coordinate our response. And then we need to consider that we may have made a mistake in attacking their colony. These humans are not the weak species we thought they were. They are dangerous, and they will not stop until they have their revenge." But the Zephyrian High Command did not want to hear about mistakes. They wanted victory. They ordered increased security and began planning a counterattack against human space. They did not understand that they were no longer fighting a war. They were being hunted, and humanity had just begun to show them what that meant. Pierce's team continued their work throughout Zephyrian space. Each destroyed installation sent the same message: remember Kepler. Each dead Zephyrian soldier was payment for human lives lost. Each burning facility lit the way for the larger human fleet that was coming. The hunt had begun, and it would not end until justice was served. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance, watching the Zephyrian home system grow larger on the main screen. 2 years had passed since the massacre at Kepler Colony, and the former colony captain now commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled. Behind him stretched a formation of 200 warships, each one built with technology captured from the enemy. The humans had learned quickly, taking alien designs and improving them with human ingenuity and determination. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving transmissions from the planet. They're asking us to identify ourselves." Morrison almost smiled. After 2 years of hunting Zephyrians across the galaxy, they still expected civilized behavior. No response. They didn't identify themselves when they attacked our colony. Dr. Lisa Grant joined him on the bridge. She had served as his chief xenological advisor throughout the war, helping him understand the enemy's psychology. "The psychological profiles are complete, Jake. These creatures have never faced real resistance before. They're used to quick victories against weaker species." "What do you recommend?" "Hit them hard and fast. Don't give them time to adapt. They're bullies, and bullies always break when someone fights back harder than they do." Morrison nodded. The Zephyrians had made their choice when they murdered his people. Now, they would face the consequences. On the Zephyrian homeworld, High Commander Zekthul paced in his command center. The humans had penetrated deep into Zephyrian space, destroying everything in their path. Worse, they seemed to be getting stronger with each battle. "Sir," his aide reported, "the human fleet has 200 ships. Our defense force has only 80. Zekthul cursed. Half the Zephyrian navy had been destroyed by human raiders over the past year. These humans fought like demons, showing no mercy and accepting no surrender. What about the orbital defense platforms? Online and ready, sir. But the humans have shown they can neutralize our shield technology. Zekthul made a decision that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. Open the forbidden archives. Summon Archivist Morden immediately. His aide stared at him in shock. Sir, the archives have been sealed for 10,000 years. The High Council forbids access to those records. The High Council is not facing extinction, Zekthul replied grimly. Do it now. Archivist Morden was an ancient Zephyrian who had spent his entire life guarding the deepest secrets of their civilization. When he arrived at the command center, his eyes were filled with fear. High Commander, you cannot be serious about opening the forbidden archives. The knowledge contained there is dangerous. More dangerous than the human fleet heading toward our world, Zekthul demanded. These creatures are unlike anything we have faced before. I need to understand what we are dealing with. Morden's hands shook as he entered the access codes. The archive chamber had been sealed since the early days of the Galactic Zephyrian Empire, containing records that the government had decided were too dangerous for public knowledge. What they found changed everything. By the ancient gods, Morden whispered as he read the first document. High Commander, you need to see this. The record was 100,000 years old, written during the early expansion of the Zephyrian Empire. It described an encounter with a species called the Velthari, who had exhibited what the ancient Zephyrians called persistence syndrome. They refused to accept defeat, Morden read aloud. Even after we destroyed their military forces and occupied their worlds, they continued to fight. They adapted our technology, improved our weapons, and used them against us. Eventually, they turned their fury on each other and destroyed themselves through endless civil wars. We claimed their empty worlds when the fighting ended. Zekthul felt his blood turn cold. Are there other records like this? Morden scrolled through the archives. 12 species over the course of our history. All of them showed the same pattern. Initial defeat followed by adaptation and escalation. In every case, they eventually destroyed themselves through internal conflict. But the humans are different, Zekthul said slowly. They haven't turned on each other. If anything, this war has united them more than ever before. The implications were terrifying. Every other species the Zephyrians had encountered had eventually self-destructed when faced with prolonged warfare. But the humans seemed to thrive on conflict, becoming stronger and more dangerous with each battle. High Commander, an officer, called out, "The human fleet is beginning its attack run." Morrison's fleet struck the Zephyrian defenses with devastating force. The orbital platforms that had protected the homeworld for centuries were destroyed in the first hour. The planet's shield generators fell to precisely targeted strikes, but Morrison was not interested in occupying the planet. This was about sending a message that would echo across the galaxy. Target their military installations only, he ordered. Leave the civilian areas alone. We're not murderers like they are. The bombardment continued for 6 hours. When it ended, the Zephyrian military was destroyed, but the civilian population was unharmed. Morrison then did something that shocked both his own officers and the surviving Zephyrians. He opened a communication channel to the planet. "This is Admiral Morrison of the Human Defense Forces," he said, his voice broadcasting to every receiver on the planet. 2 years ago, your people murdered 9,000 innocent civilians at Kepler Colony. Today, your military has been destroyed. Your fleet is scattered. Your empire is finished. Morrison paused, letting his words sink in. But unlike you, we do not make war on civilians. We do not murder children. We do not destroy homes and families for the crime of existing. On the planet below, Zekthul listened to the human admirals, words with growing dread. Your government will surrender unconditionally, Morrison continued. You will pay reparations to the families of our dead. You will disarm completely. And you will broadcast an apology to every world you have ever terrorized. In return, we will allow your civilization to continue. Morrison's voice hardened. But if you ever threaten innocent people again, if you ever raise a weapon against those who cannot defend themselves, we will return. And next time, we will not be so merciful. The transmission ended, leaving the Zephyrian homeworld in stunned silence. Zekthul turned to Morden. How many other species are watching this? The archivist's face was pale. The humans broadcast their message on all frequencies, High Commander. Every civilization in this sector heard it. Across the galaxy, alien species that had heard rumors of the human war against the Zephyrians suddenly understood what they were witnessing. These humans had traveled across space to destroy an empire that had threatened their people. They had shown the galaxy's greatest military power that there were consequences for attacking the innocent. On distant worlds, species that had suffered under Zephyrian oppression began to hope. Others, who had considered expanding their own. Empires through conquest began to reconsider their plans. The humans had proven something that the galaxy had forgotten, that bullies could be stopped, that empires built on fear and oppression could be brought down, that sometimes the right response to overwhelming force was even more overwhelming force. As Morrison's fleet departed the Zephyrian system, leaving behind a humbled and defeated empire, the galaxy began to understand that a new power had emerged. Not conquerors or oppressors, but something far more dangerous to those who preyed on the weak. Humanity had become the species that other species called when the bullies came, calling. And everyone knew that the humans always answered that call. Fleet Admiral Morrison stood before the rebuilt memorial wall on Kepler Colony, reading the names of the 9,000 people who had died 3 years ago. The colony had been rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than before, but the memorial remained as a reminder of what had been lost. They were murdered for being human. Morrison read the inscription aloud. We made sure it never happens again. Ambassador Lisa Grant joined him at the memorial. Her new role as humanity's chief diplomatic officer had taken her across the galaxy, establishing the treaties and agreements that would prevent another Kepler massacre. The Galactic Council meeting went well, she told Morrison. 47 species have signed the Kepler protocols. Any violation of civilian protection laws will result in immediate intervention. Morrison nodded. The Kepler protocols were simple, rules based on common sense. No attacking civilian populations, no targeting schools or hospitals, no genocide. Basic rules that civilized species should have followed anyway. What about enforcement? Morrison asked. That's where you come in, Lisa smiled. The Council has requested that humanity serve as the enforcement arm for the protocols. They want us to be the galaxy's peacekeepers. Morrison considered this. 3 years ago, humanity had been a minor species on the edge of known space. Now, they were being asked to police the galaxy. It was a responsibility he had never wanted, but one he knew they had to accept. Any species that signs the protocols and follows them will have our protection, Morrison said. Any species that violates them will face the consequences. On the other side of the galaxy, former Emperor Velthara of the Zephyrian Empire sat in his modest apartment on the colony world where he now lived in exile. The once mighty empire had been broken up, its military disbanded, its aggressive leaders removed from power. Velthara spent his days writing his memoirs, trying to understand how his people had gone from galactic conquerors to refugees in less than 3 years. The answer always came back to the same mistake. They had underestimated humanity. The humans did not conquer us, he wrote. They taught us. They showed us that our way of life built on fear and oppression could not survive when faced with a people who refused to be afraid. His aide, one of the few Zephyrians still loyal to him, brought him the daily news reports. Sir, there has been another incident. The Krextal Empire attacked a civilian transport in the Vega system. Velthara sighed. And the human response? A full battle group arrived within 6 hours. They destroyed the Krextal fleet and are currently occupying their military bases. The Krextal government is requesting terms for surrender. It was always the same story. Some species would test the humans, thinking they could get away with the same brutal tactics that had worked for centuries. They would attack civilians, destroy colonies, or commit genocide against weaker species. And then, the humans would arrive. The humans never conquered the aggressor species. They simply removed their ability to threaten others and moved on. It was a form of justice that the galaxy had never seen before. Swift, certain, and limited to what was necessary to stop the threat. Observer Kethlin of the Ancient Galactic. Monitoring Council finished typing his latest report. The Council had been watching galactic politics for millions of years, recording the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But they had never seen anything like humanity. Subject, Humanity, Final Assessment, he wrote. Previous classifications as emerging species and minor power have proven catastrophically incorrect. Recommend immediate reclassification as Guardian Species with highest priority status. Kethlin paused in his writing, remembering the briefings he had attended about human military doctrine. It was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Human strategic philosophy appears based on a simple principle, he continued. Aggressive species will be met with overwhelming force until they cease to be a threat. However, humans show no interest in conquest or territorial expansion. They seek only to prevent attacks on civilian populations. The report continued with detailed analysis of human technology, tactics, and psychology. But the conclusion was simple. Humanity had become the galaxy's immune system, attacking any virus that threatened peaceful civilizations. Recommendation for all Council member species. Revise first contact protocols to emphasize peaceful intent. Any action that could be interpreted as threatening to human civilians should be avoided at all costs. Humanity has demonstrated both the capability and willingness to cross any distance to protect innocent life. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations recorded the movements of human fleets. They patrolled the galaxy's trade routes, protecting merchant ships from pirates. They established bases near the territories of aggressive species, serving as a constant reminder that someone was watching. The galaxy had entered an era of peace unlike anything in recorded history, not because conflicts didn't arise, but because everyone knew what happened to species that crossed certain lines. Piracy had almost disappeared. Aggressive empires had either reformed or been dismantled. Species that had preyed on their neighbors, for centuries now focused on trade and diplomacy instead of conquest. The humans had proven that bullies could be stopped, and the galaxy's bullies had learned to find other careers. Ambassador Grant stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Concordia, delivering humanity's latest proposal. Behind her, barely visible in the viewing gallery, Admiral Morrison waited patiently. He never spoke at these diplomatic meetings, but his presence sent a clear message. The human government proposes expanding the Kepler protocols to include protection for refugees and displaced populations, Grant said. Too many species have been driven from their homes by war and oppression. We believe the galaxy has a responsibility to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The council representatives murmured among themselves. Some were genuinely interested in helping refugees. Others simply wanted to avoid becoming refugees themselves if they opposed humanity's proposals. Council Chairman Zarathnal spoke for the Assembly. The Council approves the proposal. How does humanity suggest we implement these new protections? Grant smiled. Simple. Any species that attacks refugee camps or prevents humanitarian aid will face immediate intervention. Any species that opens its borders to refugees will receive our protection and support. It was another line drawn in the cosmic sand. Another rule that said innocent people had rights that would be defended. As the council session ended, Grant and Morrison walked through the gardens outside the assembly building. Around them, representatives from dozens of species mingled and conducted business. The galaxy had become a more civilized place since humanity had announced its presence. You think we're doing the right thing? Grant asked. Some people say we've become the galaxy's bullies ourselves. Morrison considered the question carefully. We're not bullies, Lisa. Bullies pick on the weak. We only fight those who pick on the weak. He gestured toward the diverse crowd around them. Look at this place. 3 years ago, half these species were afraid to leave their home systems because of pirates and raiders. Now they travel freely, trade openly, and settle their disputes with words instead of weapons. Because they're afraid of us, Grant pointed out. No, Morrison corrected. Because they're afraid of what happens to those who threaten innocent people. There's a difference. As they walked, an aide approached with the latest intelligence reports. 3 different species had requested human assistance in dealing with aggressive neighbors. 2 pirate fleets had been spotted near trade routes and needed to be eliminated. A colony ship carrying refugees from a war zone needed escort through dangerous space. Morrison reviewed the reports and began making assignments. The human fleet would handle the pirates. Diplomatic teams would work with the species facing aggressive neighbors. Escort ships would protect the refugees. It was routine work now, the daily business of keeping the galaxy safe for those who couldn't defend themselves. Far away on Kepler Colony, the purple sun set behind the rebuilt city. Children played in streets that had once been crater-filled ruins. Families gathered for dinner in homes that had been destroyed and rebuilt. The colony thrived, a symbol of humanity's refusal to let tragedy win. The memorial wall stood at the center of the city, its 9,000 names a reminder of the price of peace. Visitors from across the galaxy came to read those names and understand what had started humanity's transformation from explorers to guardians. At the bottom of the memorial, someone had added a new inscription in dozens of galactic languages. To those who would harm the innocent, remember Kepler. Remember that humans never forget. Remember that humans never forgive those who target innocence. Remember that humans always keep their promises. The galaxy had learned to remember. And because they remembered, the galaxy had learned to live in peace. In the vast darkness of space, human ships patrolled the lanes between stars, eternal guardians watching over civilizations they had never conquered but had chosen to protect. They asked for nothing in return except the simple promise that the strong would not prey upon the weak. It was a promise the galaxy had learned to keep, because everyone knew what happened to those who broke it.